Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about Mary Parker Follett and her management theory. My name is Mikeala Carssow. I'm an MSDI student at Eastern Illinois University. Let's get started. So what we're going to talk about today is who Mary Parker Follett is. We're going to learn a little bit about her. Then we're going to talk about her theory on management. Then we'll talk about some strengths of this theory, a couple critiques of the theory, and then we'll end by just kind of going over a little summary of everything we talked about. So, who is Mary? Her name is Mary Parker Follett. She's an accomplished grad from Radcliffe College in 1898. Here she graduated at the very top of her class. Later, she would be recognized by the college as one of its greatest scholars, so that was really awesome. After she graduated from Radcliffe, she focused on social work. She went on to participate in a lot of vocational guidance, community development, and the community center movement was her first real project. The goal of this project was to achieve cultural uplift in the community that she was working with. Mary also participated as a civic activist, which can be seen in some of her books we'll talk about in just a second. And she was a management consultant once she established her management theory. She lived from 1868 to 1933 in Massachusetts. She lived in a couple different towns, just moving dependent on her work. And then her nickname over the years has been termed the Mother of Modern Management. This photo of her was taken from a website that is all about her. So if you want to learn a little bit more about who she is or what she did, you can check out her website and learn a little bit more there. But I'm going to kind of move on just for the sake of time. All right, now we're going to outline a few of her pieces of work. She has other books and participated in other political movements, but these are just a few that I will highlight. She has published a few books, and a few other books were created by others from her papers or her written work. So she didn't actually create the books, but she created the content that they put into a book. So Mary used her social work to fuel her political activism, which we can see in her first two books here. In 1896, she published The Speaker of the House of Representatives with an introduction by A.B. Hart. And in 1918, she published New State, which is explaining the importance of participation in all stages of community development. And this book has been coined one of the earliest and most comprehensive outlines of community organization theory. Next, we have Creative Experience, which is published in 1924. This book provides details on her situational approach to guiding change. This book focuses on what's called the total situation, and what this means is all of the positive or negative forces in problem-solving relationships. So this book is a guide to help kind of get you through a bunch of different conflict resolution techniques. The last book I wanted to highlight is The Dynamic Administration. This is the collected papers of Mary Parker Follett. This was published in 1942 and was based off of her written work. Like I said, some of her books weren't written by her necessarily, but the content was, and this is one of them. It was edited by Henry C. Metcalf and Lyndall Erwick. Mary not only wrote books, but she was also the founder of the School and Community Centers movement in Boston in the early 1900s. This is really cool because she pushed to represent these aspects of her community. And as a student and through my previous involvement volunteering and working with my community and the community resources, I have come to learn how important these two aspects of community are in helping to shape our youth and creating sustainable lifestyles in our community. An additional thing I wanted to know about Mary's work is that it has influenced a lot of other theorists. In almost every article I read, they mention at least one other theorist who was influenced by Mary and her work or involvement. That is one of the reasons why her books and community or political involvement is so important in understanding her theory and how it's influenced management today. And like I said, these books and her involvement in schools and community center movements are just the highlights, or just a few of the highlights of Mary's work. But there are definitely additional books published and additional groups that Mary participated in. Something else I wanted to know is the history of the United States at the time that Mary was completing her work. Like I mentioned during the last slide, a lot of the articles I read mentioned that Mary's work has influenced a lot of other theorists, but they also mentioned that she is often overlooked or lost. Many people don't know about Mary and her management theory, and I think a lot of this has to do with women's rights at the time that Mary was alive and doing her work. Mary's theory was never officially adopted by management or leaders, even though it influences so many authors and theorists. And one of the more prominent reasons why her work may have not been recognized as her own or overlooked was that women's rights movement was not until 1933, which is the year that Mary passed away. So during her theory development, Mary became associated with a group of men who advocated the scientific principles approach to management so that her work stay hidden. I'm not 100% sure if this is Mary's personal choice or if it was a requirement to keep on working at the time, but either way, it was probably motivated by the lack of women's rights. This may have been a way for Mary to remain in control of who took credit for her work, but I'm just glad that her work was not completely lost due to her circumstances at the time. Now that we know a little bit about Mary Parker Follett, I'm going to begin to outline her theory of management on the next slide. On this slide are a few terms that are necessary to understand as we dive into her management theory, so I'm going to define them really quick before we move on. The first term is integration, and this is focusing on compatible group needs. So when she's talking about the different groups and their needs, she wants ones that kind of help them all come together instead of focusing on just like little things that each one might need that isn't necessarily compatible with the other groups. Second term is reciprocal, and this means shared, felt, or shown by both sides. So this is just kind of showing two different groups who might feel the same way and promoting that towards the organization as a whole. And then cohesion, and this is the act or state of sticking together, also defined as unity. And so that's just kind of all coming together and working together and sticking together as they go through their organization's different goals. All right, so now we're going to dive into her theory. And as we talk about her theory, I want to point out that this information is primarily from an article by Sethi called Mary Parker Follett, Pioneer in Management Theory, and this was written in 1962, and then additional articles are used to support this information. I know that this is an older article, but the way that Sethi breaks down the management theory really helped me develop my understanding, so this is the article that I'll kind of focus on in this section. All right, so her theory of management. This is a very dynamic process and utilizes conflict management through domination, compromise, and integration. In this theory, there are 4 main points that Mary focuses on. So I'm going to kind of outline these. The first is coordination by direct contact of the responsible people concerned. This is saying that the communication is direct no matter the position or the role in the project. This eliminates the middleman and can help to decrease conflict or miscommunications. And this can be done in a variety of ways. For example, you can have regularly planned meetings so that everyone gets a chance to talk, or just by making sure that if someone's trying to ask you a question, that you try and get them to ask it in person so that you can also explain your answer in person to help minimize the miscommunication or misinterpretation of the information. The second is coordination in early stages. Coordination should be integrated in each role and implemented right away. This way, an employee never feels less important than another employee, and everyone understands that they have an important role that complements everyone else's. So this will mean that you relate all the parts of your organization until you have one cohesive unit kind of working together. The third focus is coordination as the reciprocal relating of all the factors in a situation. What this means is that every employee is working equally to support the goal or the purpose of the organization. Work ethic is equal in all employees regardless of their specific job title or position. So this means the CEO and the receptionist will work equally as hard and hold the same weight in the company so that everyone is working together. The final focus is coordination as a continuing process. That means that coordination must be continually upheld in the business and be utilized in everything you do so that cohesion is not lost. By motivating your organization to uphold these 4 focuses, you'll have a successful organization and cohesive work ethic to help you achieve your goals, according to Mary Parker Follett. So with every theory, there's potential strengths and critiques about whether or not this program is going to be successful for you. So one of the strengths in this theory is that it's so comprehensive. It acknowledges both the individual and the organization as a whole, and it integrates the strengths of each individual or unit to create a cohesive effort to uphold the organization's purpose or goal. So this, is really comprehensive and definitely breaks down everyone's piece to the puzzle to make sure that they're all working together to be successful. And I think that's really important. And in addition, it's flexible. So it adapts to changes in management, employees, or when trying to overcome challenges because of the direct and early communication. So by continually communicating directly, it's going to decrease, the amount of conflict, and it'll also help kind of adapt or change as the organization or the situation does. Then on the flip side, one of my critiques is that a lot of her work is published by others, or she worked under those men so that her work wouldn't get published. So it's a little unclear to me what exactly is specifically like Mary's work because of the influence of others when publishing her materials or when she was developing her theories. And another is that her work hasn't ever been truly fully embraced by the management industry, and I'm not 100% sure why. But one potential reason is time. The time that it would take to change what you're doing and to implement these changes is pretty extensive. To undo what you have in place and then kind of explain everyone's roles or everyone's importance in the organization as a whole, and meet with each of these individuals or each of the departments in your organization can take a lot of time. And the other thing, is that it minimizes the positional divide between the rankings and the business, and this may seem a little unappealing to those who have worked really hard to achieve that status. They might want more recognition or more power in the organization, but that goes against kind of everything that Mary promotes. So this could be a potential concern if you're wanting to maybe implement this in your organization. So Mary's management theory, with the pros and despite the critiques, all in all seems like it would be really effective if implemented properly. And this is because it's comprehensive and it'll promote cohesion in your workplace, which is really important when you're working towards the same goals. And hopefully this communication and attention to detail will hopefully help minimize conflict in the workplace, which will help you lead your work to success. In summary, we learned about Mary Parker Follett, who lived from 1868 to 1933 in a couple different towns in Massachusetts. She participated in social work, vocational guidance, community development, and the community center movement. She focused on cultural uplift in her community, and she wrote many books and participated in different activist groups. Her theory on management focused on 4 main points. The first is coordination by direct contact. The second is early coordination. The third is reciprocal relationships. And the fourth is coordination as a continuous process. Some of the strengths or critiques of her theory is that it's comprehensive, but it takes a lot of time, decreases status, and her work may have been lost a little in other people's voices. Finally, this is a potentially valuable theory depending on your organization, but all in all, it seems like a pretty solid theory. All right, well, hopefully this helped you learn a little bit about Mary and her management theory, and that it answered any questions you may have had about her theory and her work and influence in management. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it.